Welcome to this closing seminar in our project Migrant Safety in Agriculture. The seminar is hosted by Astrid Lovelady and myself, Johanne Sorensen. And the partners in the project have been Moesgaard Anthropological Research and Analysis Mantra at Aarhus University and Sikkerhed Innovation. And the project is funded by the National Working Environment Fund. We will shortly introduce you to the agenda of the project here. Firstly, we will map out the project framework, and Astrid will tell you about migrant safety challenges and the role of external stakeholders in safety considerations. And we will present the safety calendar that we have developed in the project and give you the recommendations from our project. And in the end, we will have time for a few questions from you, the audience. I will thank you all for participating today, and a special thank you to migrant workers, Danish workers, farmers and managers and external stakeholders who have participated in the project and spent time with us during interviews or field studies at the farms. And we will also thank the National Advisory Board and our International Advisory Board and the Working Environment Research Fund for funding the project. All right, I will introduce you to the project team here. If we start from the right side, Helle Domino was a department manager at Sikkerhed Innovation PS when the project was initiated and in major parts of the project, and she left Sikkerhed, and then Christina Edstrand became the department manager at Sikkerhed Innovation, and has been part of the last phases of the project, together with Astrid Lovelady, who is a specialist consultant at Sikkerhed Innovation PS, but who has also been the research leader at Aarhus University in major parts of the project. And we have also worked closely together with Sophie Koenig-Wilms, who was our great research assistant in Mantra at Aarhus University. And finally, myself, I'm a professional manager of Mantra at Aarhus University, and also an anthropologist like both Sophie and Astrid. The background of this project was that Danish agriculture actually has the highest number of fatal accidents and serious work-related accidents compared to other sectors in Denmark. And we wanted to dig deeper into an understanding of the background of these numbers, and therefore initiated an anthropological study. And that leads me to this slide, which focuses at the project framework. We had 3 work packages in the project, and the first work package focused at safety practices and knowledge at pig and cattle farms. And we conducted participant observation at 3 cattle farms and a pig farm, and made altogether 44 semi-structured interviews with migrant workers, Danish workers and farmers and managers. And in the second work package, we had a focus at the role of external stakeholders and conducted 23 interviews with inter alia, labor market partners, the Danish Working Environment Authority, veterinarians, local agricultural cultural consultants, language schools, and recruitment agencies. The third work package focused at the development of safety tools. And within this work package, we had co-creation processes and with both migrant workers, farmers, and our international advisory board, and develop the safety calendar that we will present to you later on in this presentation. Now Astrid will take over and tell you about the migrants' safety challenges.
So, hello everyone, I'm Astrid Lovelady, and I would like to go through the migrant safety challenges, the main one that we experienced during our field research. The first one, it's something we hear often, that migrants have different attitudes to and perceptions of safety, but this is not always entirely clear. Because although many migrants may come from countries where health and safety is not necessarily prioritized and enforced, as in Denmark, our field research also showed that migrants were often quite aware of how to, for example, handle animals safely, and they would also warn each other about potentially aggressive animals. But we also saw that this knowledge about how to handle the animals safely, that's a knowledge which is sort of gradually built up, and that can be necessary if migrants don't necessarily have a background in agriculture. As I'll return to, even though we experienced that migrants often had or were aware of how to handle animals safely in everyday practice, we also experienced that migrants often didn't have a lot of knowledge about the official rules about health and safety. But the important thing here is to conclude that migrants, it's not like migrants don't prioritize safety at all. And here is an interview except from an agricultural consultant who, and I'll just summarize it in English, that the experience is that the migrant workers think, well, that safety is silly. Why should we talk about that? It's more dangerous to be a soldier in Ukraine than take care of pigs in Denmark. So they don't see any problems with it at all. But as just mentioned, it's not that entirely clear in our experience. The next factor which can impact health and safety cooperation is language barriers and communication. And that's a fundamental issue that we often meet and are made aware of, that language barriers makes everyday cooperation at the farm difficult. We also experience that many migrants do not speak much English or any Danish at all. And at the same time, Danish farmers and Danish workers don't necessarily speak English that well. So communication is impacted by language barriers, and it can be difficult to get messages across. There were various ways to try and overcome such language barriers. Sometimes drawings would be used as a kind of visual communication to make messages about, for example, how to handle cattle, to make such messages more clear. And we often saw, and I'll also get back to that fairly often communication takes place through other migrant workers, who then act as translators between some migrants who are not necessarily able to communicate very well in English or Danish. They communicate, and then there's another migrant who acts as a translator between the other migrants and then Danish workers and the farmers. what is important, and I will just read a citation from a Ukrainian farm worker we spoke with. My English is not perfect, and I was shy to ask something in English. And so it's like a person factor, you know, when you're not sure that your English is okay. You're sometimes scared to say something or ask something because you think maybe the farmer, will think that I'm stupid or I'm not okay. But it's really big mistake. Now I know this. So what we do see is that not that migrant workers don't necessarily like asking another time if there's something they don't understand, because as this farm worker says, that there might be a concern about what the farmer or Danish colleague will think if they can't if they ask another time if there's something they don't understand. So we, for example, we didn't see a direct correlation between language misunderstandings and accidents, but what we did see was that the lack of ability to perhaps speak entirely clearly in Danish English was an impediment for migrants to ask another time. And this, whether they sort of could ask another time and felt safe enough to do that, that depended a lot on the relationship to the farmer. And this is a really important one. And I'm just going to briefly summarize the story of Ivan and Lavra, as we call them. Was a Ukrainian couple who came to Denmark as agricultural apprentices. And they came to work at a farm in Denmark, which they were very unhappy about. For example, the farmer wanted Lavra to castrate faster, and would also time how fast she castrated. Lavra and Ivan lived in a house by the farm with other Ukrainian workers, and they had to pay rent for the house in cash. And they were very much under stress from the farmer, and the workers were afraid to be sent home to Ukraine if they did not do what they were told. So Lavra and Ivan, after they had been apprentices, they became herdsmen. But in particular, Lavra couldn't stand the conditions anymore. So they quit the job and the farm, and they went back to Ukraine. And they were looking for jobs in a range of countries. And they then managed to find another job in Denmark. They came to Denmark, and they came with a recruitment company, which they were very dissatisfied about. But and they didn't get what they thought they were promised. But they then managed. Lavra saw a job advertisement for a job at another farm in Denmark, and they both eventually had a job at that farm, and they were very happy to be there. And they had been working there for several years when we met them. So we experienced, so at first they had a job at a farm where they were very unhappy to be, and they ended up being at a farm where they were very happy to be. And we experienced big differences in terms of the migrants' experiences at the farm. Some were happy about it, and some were not. And the key things to take from this are that the migrants' relationships to their employers, the farmers, and including the managers, they were very important to their experiences of their work at the farms. And the migrants are often very dependent on the farmer in terms of the job and potentially the residence permit in Denmark and the place to live, and also in terms of the working environment at the farm. This is potentially a bit different to other sectors, because a farm is often a fairly small workplace compared to companies in other sectors. And the migrants often lived sort of just by the farm, so they're very close to each other, and the farmer is really important to the migrants' experiences of working and living in Denmark. And it's important that what we saw is that it's important for the farmers and the migrants to have a trustful relationship, to be able to overcome some of the challenges that they could face in their daily cooperation, for example, in terms of language barriers. But building a trustful relationship could help, for example, the migrants to ask another time if there's something they don't understand. And the farmer is a really key person here, and it takes a lot of effort for the farmers to build this trustful relationship. Some of the farmers we talked with described that initially when the migrants come to Denmark, they can be really humble towards the farmer, so to establish a trustful and sort of an equal relationship requires a lot of effort from the farmer. It requires that the farmer emphasizes that the migrants should ask if there's something they don't understand. So the relationship to the employer or the farmer is a key factor for creating a positive and safe working environment. Not everything that we experienced was about being a migrant. We also met factors such as gender and age that can impact the attitudes to health and safety. There is national and international research which shows that, well, health and safety is impacted by gender and age, and might show that men do not necessarily prioritize health and safety, as they might not see this as particularly masculine. And also research shows that that younger workers don't necessarily prioritize health and safety as much as older workers who may become more aware of vulnerabilities. And I'm just going to summarize a quotation from a farmer who says that we men have to be able to run a risk, and we have to play heroes once in a while. And he doesn't really know how it should be done so it doesn't go wrong, and accidents happen. And he says, well, we want to show who have the strongest car or something like that. But what's the important thing here is that the approach to health and safety is often socially developed, and it may depend on social expectations to age and gender, whether a worker is a migrant or a Danish worker. And that's important to be aware of, that there are other factors also at play than being a migrant. I'll just return to the knowledge about safety, because when we asked migrants about their knowledge, sort of more about formal safety rules, workplace risk assessments, their knowledge was often scarce. Although, as I pointed out before, when we asked about how they actually handled the animals, they were often very aware of how to handle the animals safely. But what we see is that safety onboarding often takes place through peer training, where the new worker follows other workers around and goes with other workers around to learn how to do the actual work tasks, including how to do them safely. And in terms of migrants, we often see that other migrants are responsible for the peer training. So as I mentioned before, some migrants might act as translators, and some migrants might also become those who do the peer training. And obviously this may work well, but as one farmer mentioned, when the communication goes through another migrant with the same linguistic background as other migrants, it risks creating second-class employees, because simply because the farmer, the Danish colleagues, are not able to talk directly with some of the migrants. And also, you can say when onboarding takes place through other migrants in a different language that the farmer or the manager don't understand, it becomes difficult for the farmer or the manager to get to know the new worker and build a relationship of trust. So that is something to be aware of. That when if it's difficult to get to know the new employee, it's difficult to build this trustful relationship and possibly the positive working environments. But as I mentioned, often the migrants didn't have much knowledge about the sort of official safety rules and regulations, and it means that if an accident happens, it can be difficult for the migrants to get the right help because they do not necessarily know their rights and obligations, in particularly in the beginning when they come to Denmark. Then some might learn if an accident has happened, well, they have learned from it, and for the next time they might know where to get the right help. We'll get back to this in our recommendations. Another factor we saw that can impact health and safety cooperation of the farm is well-being and stress. And what we experienced was that most interviewees, including the farmers and managers, they were very aware of the negative consequences of being stressed in terms of health and safety. But we still saw that migrants had experiences of work pressure from the farmer, and there's one that is Lavra from who I also mentioned before. She said, well, that she had experienced that the farmer was sort of timing her castration, and said that she had to make 16 per hour, and he was sort of standing pointing down at his watch to time her, and that was obviously really stressful, and contributed to her being very sad about working in this particular farm. So, but most of the people we spoke to were aware of the negative consequences of being stressed. But because of the migrants' sometimes precarious situations in Denmark, where, as I mentioned, they're very dependent on their jobs in Denmark, it can be difficult for the migrants to reject work pressure, and that's that's something to be aware of for the farmer, that the farmer is actually in a really very much a relationship of power in terms of this. Also, in terms of the migrants' well-being, we often experience that the migrants live sort of very close to at the farm, fairly geographically isolated, and that can impact their individual well-being. It's difficult perhaps to get around, and consequently their social life. So, and that's also something to be aware of, that it can be a bit that for some this potential isolation or isolated life can impact their well-being. So, and something we have heard before in a previous project was that farmers' cross-cultural management skills could be improved. And in this project, an agricultural consultant mentioned to us that the farmers are not necessarily trained leaders, so it's difficult suddenly to handle several employees and create a positive and safe working environment. And farmers, they need to manage now a fairly complex company where they are business owners with financial responsibilities, employees' responsibilities, and they need to be good at the farm work itself. But as the agricultural consultant mentioned, the farmers and managers are not necessarily trained leaders, and this can impact their ability to create a positive and safe working environment. Also, farmers do not necessarily know a lot about the migrants' cultural background, and that can also make it more difficult to create a positive working environment with cooperation on health and safety. So this project actually confirmed that that management skills can be improved in at least some places. So in short, we see that these structural, linguistic, social, and cultural challenges impact the cooperation on health and safety at the farms. And secondly, the migrants' ability to tackle potential accidents. So they might not know what to do if an accident happened, and then they might not get the right help. And even though migrant workers, Danish workers, and farmers experience many of the same health and safety issues, so in terms of handling animals safely and dealing with machines, being a migrant and a newcomer in Denmark reinforces some of the challenges with health and safety, and can make it more difficult to sort of tackle health and safety and establish a good cooperation on health and safety. But as we also experienced, it is actually possible to improve the health and safety cooperation and build relationships of trust that we see as a one key factor for improvement of health and safety cooperation. And here the farmer's effort is essential for building a positive relationship. So this was a fairly brief review of migrants' health and safety challenges. As my colleague Johanne mentioned, we also interviewed external stakeholders. And I will just give a brief overview of their potential impact on migrants' health and safety at farms. The first external stakeholder is the Danish Working Environment Authority, which is the authority on the working environment and health and safety. And the Danish Working Environment Authority carries out, for example, inspections and advises farms about, for example, preventive measures and safety culture. And because some of the migrants act as translators, they get almost a managerial role at the farm to other workers, including migrant workers. And the Working Environment Authority may have a dialogue with these migrants in a kind of a managerial role about health and safety, because these migrants also become responsible for communicating about health and safety. But the Working Environment Authority might also experience challenges because of the Working Environment Authority's status as an authority. Some migrants have mistrust in authorities that they carry from their home countries, and they can be concerned about the potential implications that they think might happen if they speak with the authority. Or some migrants might have heard that reporting a workplace accidents means that you get put on a bus back to your home country. So such challenges can exist in the dialogue with migrant workers. Then we have political actors, as we call them here. That's the labour market partners and business organisation, and they work for their respective political agendas, but they also cooperate on health and safety issues, and that may also impact the migrants' working environment. Then we have local agricultural consultants, and I have mentioned them a few times already, and they're often deeply involved in the everyday lives at farms, including the lives of the migrant workers, or lives and work of the migrant workers. They may also be involved in dialogues with the migrant workers and potential disputes between the farmers and the migrant workers. Then we have the recruitment agencies. Some migrant workers are positive about the recruitment agencies that they have come to Denmark through. But as with Ivan and Lavra, they may also have more negative experiences where they don't get what they think they were promised. I remember Ivan and Lavra told that they had to pay the recruitment fee to the recruitment agency before they received the contract for the work in Denmark, and then the work in Denmark wasn't as they expected it would be. Some recruitment agencies also take fairly high recruitment fees, and some help migrants a lot if they experience issues in Denmark, and others don't help. So we have had fairly different experiences in terms of the recruitment agencies. Another actor or external stakeholder that we think is fairly important here is the veterinarians. They are a kind of health professional also who also knows about the risks of working with the animals as they do themselves. So we talked with one who could ask the workers about their use of masks, for example. But another one also said, well, the farmer is the veterinarian's customer, and it might be difficult for the individual veterinarian to make actual demands in terms of health and safety at the farms. So they're not necessarily like an organization who can sort of together make a demand. Then we have the last one here is the manufacturers of machines. They have to comply with the EU directive for machine safety. But one also said that they should also think safety when building the machines. But some farmers may actually ask the manufacturers to uninstall safety features on the machines, and it's important in this case that the manufacturers resist such requests. So, in short, we see that the external stakeholders, they are able to impact health and safety at the farms, but their involvement and their ability to impact the cooperation on health and safety varies depending on their positions. But nonetheless, we see that the stakeholders are aware of the migrant situations, and sometimes they get involved, but it can also be difficult because of, for example, language barriers and the status as an authority. So I will leave the word to Johanne.
Thank you, Esther. Yes, and I will tell you a little about the safety calendar that the project team developed through some co-creation workshops with both migrant workers, farmers, and also with our international advisory board. And the calendar contains 12 safety themes, one for each month, and each theme then has discussion questions and also QR codes which can be used to find more information. So in other words, the safety calendar is composed by two parts: a physical calendar with these 12 themes and the discussion questions and the QR codes that then leads to the second part of the calendar, the website at Landbrug's info, that is called Calendar Topics for Safety on the Farm, where these QR codes lead you to videos and information materials that has been made by Sikkerhed Innovation and BAU from Earth to Table and the Danish Work Environment Authority. So when selecting this material, we by and large focused at visual and audio-visual materials because we know that many of these migrants are struggling to read a lot of stuff, and it's very instructive also to see videos on safety instructions because you then get the information both by the words and the instructions, the physical appearances of the persons in the videos. I will tell you a little more about the calendar and how we made how we promoted it, and also got some feedback on the calendar. In 2023 and 2024, we participated in the CAL conference in Herning both years, and in 2023 we had a workshop with both farmers and migrant workers at this conference, and the year after it was more we were there to present the results and to actually give the calendar to people who wanted to have it physically. And also we have participated in International Society for Agricultural Safety and Health in Florida. Sophie and Astrid have participated in this conference and given a lecture on the research results from the projects there. And Astrid also participated in Sicily in the Safety, Health and Welfare in Agriculture and Agri-Food Systems Conference. And to promote the safety calendar, we made an English video for social media that we distributed in Facebook groups for farmers, and also the poster that you can see here at the slide with a QR code on it, through which you can get more information about the calendar and also order the calendar. And this was also distributed at the social media platforms. Moreover, we also made a direct mail for trade organizations and project participants to encourage them to actually get the calendar. And finally, in order to get some feedback on the calendar, we went out after it had been out for 1 month, so in February 24, and asked a couple of, actually 3 different farmers how they liked this calendar. In one place we were doing it as a participant observation act in a staff meeting, and actually saw how the calendar was used at this meeting. And in the 2 other cases, we made telephone interviews to actually get to know how it was implemented and used at the farms. And what we got to know was that they were actually quite happy at this stage with the calendar. It was still very new to them, and it was not fully implemented in their work practices yet. But they really wanted to implement it, and found that it was a very good occasion to actually discuss safety issues and how they manage safety at the farms during their everydays. And it also made them reflect on previous safety occasions and how they were managed, and if they could improve their management of these situations. So it came out that it appeared that it was actually used as we had wished for, and we then really hope that over the year it's been easier for them to implement the calendar in monthly meetings and get all the topics discussed. Some of the farmers said to us that they would like to have a professional introduction to the calendar, and they would like that because then they were sure that they would actually make the most out of the good materials that were stored in the QR codes and get the best discussions possible. So they were actually quite ambitious in their use of the calendar, was the impression. So Astrid will tell you about our recommendations.
Yes. So on the basis of our work and our data collection and analyses, we have developed some recommendations. And the first one is a systematic introduction to safety. That's because we met many migrant workers who did not have much knowledge about sort of the more formal cooperation or formalized cooperation on health and safety, including rules and regulations on health and safety. So we suggest that that all migrant workers have a potentially mandatory training on health and safety when they come to Denmark to support a good start on their work in Danish agriculture. The second recommendation is improved cooperation across the value chain in agriculture, and that's because we think it would be useful that the entire value chain stands together to improve the health and safety standards and cooperation at the farms. And at the moment, there's a lot of work done on ESG, where the S in ESG is a social dimension, and using and developing the S could potentially also support this improved cooperation across the value chain. The third recommendation is improved visibility around online tools. We experienced that many migrant workers did not know much about the existing online tools and information that is available publicly, and also in some cases translated at least into English, but also perhaps languages like Romanian and Ukrainian. And we thought that it would be useful for migrants to know even more about these accessible materials and tools online, perhaps making them available through apps or some other system which would be easily used in the barn. The fourth recommendation is increased and continuous awareness of migrant workers or apprentices from new third countries. So since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, we have seen a significant decrease in the number of Ukrainian apprentices who come to work in Danish agriculture. So instead, many apprentices now come from African and Asian countries. This is still a fairly new tendency, and we recommend to just be aware and attentive to the potential impact that it might have on the health and safety cooperation when people then come from new countries. The fifth recommendation is focus on key persons around the farmers. So we saw that the attitude and approach to health and safety is often socially developed and might then also depend on expectations for gender and age. We also experienced that some interlocutors or interviewees made us aware that for example the wife of the farmer could be a key person to include in the health and safety cooperation and the improvement of this. So our suggestion is to involve key persons around the farmers, to include them in the health and safety work. The sixth and final recommendation is to ensure that health and safety becomes an ingrained part of professional pride in agriculture. So firstly, we see that many workers and farmers have a lot of professional pride in their work, and we think that health and safety should be an ingrained part of this pride. It's a part of being a professional in agriculture. And secondly, Danish agriculture is going through a transformation towards more sustainability, and this impacts the framework for agriculture and production methods. And we think that this is an opportunity to include health and safety and the working environment even more in what it means to have what it means to create sustainable agriculture. So we include, you could say, the social dimension and the people even more in what it means to have sustainable agriculture. So these are our 6 recommendations, and you're also welcome to read our report where we go even much into depth with our analysis, the migrants' safety challenges, the external stakeholders, and the recommendations and the safety calendar, of course. So
maybe we should just tell you that the title of the report is Migrants' Safety in Agriculture, but in Danish. So Migranters Sikkerhed i Landbrug. And we will send it to you after the seminar, I think, in an email. So you have the link to access it.
Yeah. Any questions or comments?
Alla?
Yeah. We can see Alla. You had your hands up.
Yes. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Yeah. Great. First of all, thank you so much for nice presentation. And I have question to you, Astrid. It's about this recommendation on the last part, and as a first recommendation it was this systemic introductions courses, and I'm just curious, do you have any ideas or initiatives on like who will conduct these safety courses for migrants? Could it be like digital platforms online, or it's like physical? And for instance, can we think about like 3F as a union to collaborate with and explain migrants about safety and in the working places?
Yeah. Thank you very much for your question. I think it's a really good point. This with the consideration whether it should be physical or online. So if we take an online training, that might be useful to reach out to many migrants in particular, because as we mentioned, I'm sure you're also very well aware of, they often live fairly far in the countryside, and it might be difficult to get time off from work and to get to a meeting point to have a training. So with an online training, we could perhaps reach more people. But with a physical training, I also think, because we had some workshops at some point, I had it with my good colleague Marianne Netop, with migrants, where we actually drove into various places and had workshops with migrant workers, and it was so beneficial to have the discussions face to face and to have a lot more interactive learning. But I also have to say from experience, it has been sometimes really difficult to get together people for physical meetings, because of the transport distances, because of shifts at work. So I think it's a really valid question, and I think it's a useful consideration where there are pros and cons to both a physical and an online training. And for your second question about cooperation with 3F, I mean, definitely, you have an, I mean, it's an open invitation. We would love to cooperate on this. That would be a really good idea. So, yeah, let's have a talk about this.
Yes, and I can see Marianne has her hand up. Did you want to say something, Alle?
No, it was just thank you for answer.
Okay, good. And then Marianne?
Thank you, and thank you so much for your work. It's very, very, I can use all of it. So thank you so much for what you have done. I'll bring it to EU for my work there. I have a question about all the health and safety tools that are online, digital. Would it be possible to inform about all these tools? I think Ukrainians in Denmark have their own Facebook group, like Danish people in Belgium have their own. So could it be a place to advertise and make information about the tools for better health and safety?
Thank you very much for your question. That's a really good question. So I think, well, first of all, we have made this safety calendar, which actually for each month has a health and safety theme. And via QR code, you can go onto a page where we have brought together some of the health and safety information. That's a small step. Secondly, I think that an introductory course to health and safety training would also be a platform for informing about all the health and safety information which is already available. And thirdly, I also think that it's a really good idea to also inform more about all the health and safety materials and tools in, for example, Facebook groups for Ukrainians or Romanians. So that's definitely that's definitely something we could do even more and improve. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Dennis?
Yeah.
Dennis?
We can't hear you, Dennis.
Dennis, we think you're muted. No? Okay. No, I think...
Okay, now, is it working now?
Yes, now we hear you. Very good. Okay.
Sorry, it's normally I'm pretty hard to unmute though, but yeah. Astrid, it's just that I think you shouldn't forget us around in the whole country who are working with safety issues also, that as advisors on the different advisory boards, we also have a lot of expertise in advising and also speaking English, and we have a very close contact to all migrant workers also. And down in Spiras, we are actually having meetings every 6 months or so, depending on how many migrant workers we can get together in a meeting, and where we operate them in safety issues, but also the normal integrational issues as tax paying in Denmark. How is it organized? How do we do things? And I think this close relationship is also very important.
Definitely, and thank you for raising the points. We're definitely aware of your really important work in both the farmers and the migrants' everyday life. So yes, thank you.
No worries.
I'm a little in doubt, Marianne. Is it a new or an old hand?
Old hand, thank you.
Okay.
Any more questions or comments? No. Yeah, Pierre? Oh, that's one. Yeah.
Yes, I'm from the Danish working environment, and I'm a bit curious about how do they mention us if they have met us out there, or are we good enough to talk to the foreign workers?
That's a good question. I think, at least in my experience, migrant workers may sort of mix the various Danish stakeholders or consultants that come to visit the farms. So it's whether you are from one or the other organization, that can be a bit mixed. Or the migrants, I remember one who said, well, that's a farmer who talks with the working environment authority. As I also mentioned, the status as an authority can impede the dialogue with migrant workers. But I'm aware that the Danish Working Environment Authority makes a big effort to be in dialogue with people and to focus more holistically on the workplace. And but at the time of the data collection, we didn't really hear about sort of many migrant workers who had been in direct contact with the Working Environment Authority. Then perhaps we have met some who, if there have been issues at the farm or they have had some bad experiences, then with my experience that people perhaps contact the 3F, the union, if there have been some issues. But at least I don't remember having spoken to one in this project or previous project who have, for example, contacted the Danish Working Environment Authority directly, for example, through your hotline. And when I had a training on health and safety with my colleague Marianne Norb, one of our exercises was actually to call your hotline. We had told you before that was an exercise in our training.
All right. I think Stine raised her hand just before. Did you have a comment?
No, thank you.
No. Okay. Good. Yes.
Yeah.
With them, I think, we just want to thank you all for participating today, and we hope that you will enjoy and share our report with colleagues and other people of interest who have interest in the field.
Yeah. And if you have any further questions or comments, then feel free to get in touch with us. We are happy to be in dialogue about it. Yes. Yeah. So thank you very much for joining us today. Have a nice weekend.
You too.
Thank you.
See you.